You are listening to the Voice of Bold Business Radio. This is program 112, the alignment of sales and marketing for the modern buyer. And it's really interesting because when I was first setting the show up and considering what a modern buyer looked at, I really looked at myself. I looked at my team. I looked at my family. I looked at my friends. I looked at my colleagues. I looked at people who have been on this show. And yes, every single one of them is involved in selling something. But you want to know something else? Every single one of them is also a consumer, as are you. And so we are all modern buyers, and we are shaped by our experience. We are shaped by what we like. We are shaped by the experiences that we have, and we all have our pet peeves too. And so when we're thinking about sales and marketing from a business side of things, how they fit together, flow together, grow together makes a big difference. And right after this, you are going to hear Brynn and Robert answer this question. How are the internal strategic conversations changing to ensure sales and marketing are working together to create curiosity around the company's solution? Now, before you actually get to meet Robert and Brynn, I want to introduce them to you. Robert Caruso is an experienced social media, digital marketing, and technology professional with over 20 years of creating, planning, and executing marketing strategies for B2B and B2C brands. Robert is recognized on Forbes' list of top 40 social media marketers and 57th top digital marketing influencer. Brynne Tillman transforms the way professionals grow their businesses through leveraging LinkedIn, social selling, and digital sales tools. We'll be right back after this.
Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business, the show that provides everything smart leaders need to evaluate situations, build relationships, and create solutions. Jessica Dewell candidly talks about the skills necessary to build tenacity and do more with less. And now, here's Jessica.
Brynn, how are the internal strategic conversations changing to ensure that sales and marketing are working together to create more curiosity around a company's solution?
So I love that question, Jess. Typically, marketing and sales are very siloed, right? Traditionally, they've been completely separate. They barely ever talk. And in fact, if they are in the same room, they're kind of arguing over those leads are not the ones I want. And I brought you so many leads. Why aren't you closing them? Right. And so that's been the conversation forever. But digital and social has changed this conversation. They're really becoming symbiotic in a lot of ways. And so to your question, that conversation internally has really changed, and it's an exciting one. And the conversation now is really about how does marketing support exactly what sales needs to move the deal through the pipeline? And sales is really relying on the tools that marketing is using to qualify and really score leads that are coming in to make the leads that are going into sales much more usable, much more opportunistic. So I love that I'm seeing this come together. In addition, there's a new role that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years, which is sales enablement. And sales enablement is sitting between the two departments. It's really the bridge, making sure that all the marketing tools are working with all those sales reps and then they all play nice in the sandbox.
So there we go. We have our complete answer right here. Thank you, Brynn. Robert, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Sure.
How are the internal strategic conversations changing to ensure sales and marketing are working together to create more curiosity around a company's solution?
Sales has become much more marketing, and marketing has become much more sales. I think we can say that, yeah, social had an impact on that, but I think the overall integrated digital marketing and omni-channel marketing has certainly created that as well. So all of the tools that sales use now are in fact digital marketing tools, and vice versa. So the focus that marketing has certainly is on the sales outcomes, and it's no longer what we've seen in past decades of it being a branding focused environment. Part of the question was, how do we know whether communication, the changes there has been useful or too much? And I think that's really where we are right now. So the noise, the over communication really seems to be changing into something that is more concise and effective, regardless of what Twitter's doing right now with their 280 characters.
Okay, we're going to totally take a tangent here because 1, they trained us. 2, they actually made us be more concise in our thought and clarity with that limitation. And it has become a standard for so many things for clarity. And here we are, they're diluting their own best kept secret, helping the rest of the world.
And I think there'll come a time where we'll be happy that we have it, but I think change is hard no matter what, right? And I will honestly say, although there's a little hack around this, there's 120 characters in a headline for LinkedIn. And I just pray that they would up that to the 140. Now, if they up that to the 280, I'm in heaven, right? Like, it is real estate and it does bring us in. The interesting thing is, I think our readers are used to 140. I think they stop reading. I think a large tweet is too long for our readers. So that's the interesting balance there. I also want to add, and I don't know if this is a whole other question that you're going to ask, but Robert said something really interesting about too much content versus good content, which I think is one of the most important conversations to have between marketing and sales. Marketing often is judged by quantity, not necessarily quality. But when we are out there pushing a ton of noise, we are alienating our audience. And I think what Robert said is so important is how are we kind of finding that balance between too much content and the right content? And I think what we have to make sure that we do is that our content is always leading to our solution. It doesn't mean it leads with our solution, which is pitching.
Right.
But it's got to always lead to our solution. So I had a client who was they sold telephone systems, and she was putting out daily inspirational quotes every day. And I wanted to pull my hair out. What are you known for? You're known for your inspirational quotes. Nobody knows you as the telephone person. And so no one will ever know how to engage you professionally. So I just kind of wanted to piggyback on Robert's comments that content really needs to be driving them, the curiosity from that first question, creating curiosity, creating a mind shift, creating questions, maybe getting them to think differently than they did before, or getting them a little uncomfortable with their current solution, all the time moving closer and closer to your solution.
If I've got to do an evaluation for my organization and I have to break the bad news to my marketing team that things are going to have to change, what are the 1 or 2 questions that each of you would pose? So we have no more than 4, right? We don't want to overwhelm people here. But what are the 1 or 2 questions that you would ask to evaluate? Am I just pushing stuff to push stuff? Am I creating something useful here for our company to succeed?
Sure. I think all of that has to work from data. So there's no 1 or 2 questions for all companies that you would utilize to ask that. So from the data, you should be able to point to why are we doing X when Y is always occurring, or vice versa, right? If you're not driving traffic, right, why are we creating quotes? If we are continually losing people out of our email marketing list, why are we sending 15 emails a week that is only about us and our product? One of the big challenges I think brands have today is it's never been easier to create content and do it in volume. I'll give you 2 examples. I'll combine them together, and I won't name the brands, but there's 2 particular brands that one is retail apparel, and they have brick and mortar and e-commerce, and one is in, we'll just say travel to say general. And both of them I use and like. But the problem these brands have is they think my world revolves around them. I like deals, but my life doesn't revolve around deals from their brand. And the challenge that their brand and other brands have nowadays is because it's easy doesn't mean it needs to occur every day, nor does my world revolve around them. And so when it's always about them and their products and their deals or what have you, and it's coming at a volume that is just beyond my ability to consume it or care enough to consume it, that becomes a problem.
I'll try with two questions. The first one, and it is data driven, but I'll talk about a little bit about how, like, the data you need to get, right? So you need to understand what it is that your buyer cares about. So stop talking about what you want to tell them and start talking about what helps them, what brings value, what brings insight, that what gets them engaged. So the first thing is to understand your buyer. And the only way you're ever going to do that is through surveys and talking to them and identifying what it is that they care about. Parallel to that, we have to identify what are our goals, right? And setting kind of what are our key performance indicators that tell us that our marketing campaigns and strategies are working. What is the percentage of email fall-offs that's acceptable? And are our numbers going down, or are the average numbers going up? Do I have more subscribers than falling off? And we have to look at kind of that data that Robert talked about to identify, is what we're doing working? And are we attracting and engaging our real buyers? At one point I looked at my email list, and if 2% of them were really my prospects, that was a lot. And I had this was years ago, but I had an enormous list of people that were never going to buy my services. They just liked my posts. So what did I recognize? That my posts were engaging the wrong buyers. I was either in the wrong business or I was talking about the wrong thing, right? It was a wonderful lesson for me, and I shifted. But at the end of all of this, we have to make sure that everything aligns and goes back to our goal. And we have to test and tweak and make sure at all times that everything that we're doing continues to work toward that goal. And even if it's daily, go, okay, our goal is to get more phone calls with buyers. Are we selling online? Or is our goal how many widgets we sell? Is our goal how many people downloaded an ebook? Is that a KPI that really, really matters to us? And then, are those buyers scoring high in whatever marketing system whatever they gave us in their lead scores? And is the ratio right? So are we getting 100 people downloading, but only 2 that qualify?
Let's talk for a minute. Let's switch and go to the customer experience and how hard it is for the customers when sales and marketing are kind of doing their own thing still.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it can definitely affect the customer experience. There's no doubt about it. I hate to do this, but I think it's important, so I'm going to.
I love these.
We mentioned KPIs. Here's the challenge. We just went through this with a client of ours. So we only deal with this whole integrated digital marketing scenario for clients. That's what we manage for them. But if everyone's not on the same page with which KPIs are important, right? Even though, right, 2 years ago, 0 digital footprint. Now everything's driving like this, but the client's KPIs or perceived importance is these 8 keywords aren't 1 or through 5 on, first page of Google. Whoa, okay. But is that what's important, or is what's important that we're driving 45% more traffic year over year, that the bounce rate is cut by 50%? You show me a retail organization that's not happy with a 35% bounce rate from all channels. That's phenomenal. As an organization and as an agency with us, it's about having proper communications about what is important and why, and how it all connects to the organization's growth, profitability, and user experience. Mm-hmm. Right? Because if we shift gears to these 8 search terms ranking 1 to 5 on page, what happens to the user experience on the site and through the whole sales process and so on, let alone what happens to the overall results.
I'm much more on the sales side than the marketing side, although there's some content that we help our clients with for sure in content management, but we don't do true digital marketing the way that you do. And so our KPIs typically are around really what the sales leadership is looking for. However, we will say, what are you responsible for, right? So we've got to get KPIs around what you get paid on. What does your manager, whether it's the CSO, the chief sales officer, or if you're reporting into the CEO, what are their goals? If there is a board, what are their goals? And what is your sales rep goals? Because they are all going to be very different. And the KPIs that sales rep really needs to work toward have to 100% benefit them personally, but also benefit all the way up the chain. So it is this very interesting kind of balance between making sure that all of the goals are met and they are designed in a way that the sales rep thinks that it's only for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To get results.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
And every change to those things could affect the consumer experience.
I don't talk a lot about the consumer experience because we are not interfacing in that way. We're not the website. We're not,
Well, but you are consumers, so we can totally talk about it from what we see on that side.
I am a
consumer. Because I have to tell you, those pet peeves we all need to hear. And we could probably go be a customer at all of our clients and give them at least one of the same pet peeves that we have.
Yeah. Okay. Another pet peeve. I get an email from a department store and I see a bag I love or a scarf. And I click on that picture and it takes me to the main page and it doesn't actually take me to the item that they advertised for me. Big pet peeve, close out.
One of the companies that I've worked with in the past, the CEOs, I actually really liked him. And his biggest strength was, what does my customer experience? And he would randomly just go do different things and interface and see how these different departments would work as a consumer and go, well, this is what they see. And I don't like that. This is what they see. And it really needs to be this. Mm-hmm. And he was finding through his effort and attention, these things to do. And I have to tell you, in an organization of 50 people with a lot of independent contractors associated with that, that's a big job to try and communicate that. And so it takes time and it takes thought. So when we're thinking about this, how much time do we actually need to think about this and to revisit this and evaluate it on an ongoing basis?
Can I share one more that makes me really nuts? This is my favorite one that makes me nuts.
Okay.
And AI will change this. And I actually think I don't know how to program it, but I know how it needs to be fixed. I buy something on Amazon and it still follows me, but I already bought it.
Yeah, that's true.
So I want buttons on that ad that says, I bought it, I'm not interested. You can say, show me something else. But can you imagine the intelligence that it would give you? It's like already bought it and then it goes away and it doesn't show it to you anymore, but it shows you something like it. That would be awesome. But to continue to see the ad of something I've already purchased is such a waste of consumer dollars.
Can't do it with buttons because guys like me will just press it to make it go away. So it won't be good. But you talked about AI, we're talking about a database. So the database should be able to recognize that pretty easily and not display it to you. If they can display it to you based on your activity, they can certainly not display it to you based on your activity. It's just nobody cares about that because it doesn't drive revenue, whereas displaying it to some people is driving revenue and they can calculate the revenue coming from it and the ROI achieved from it.
You look at Amazon and Amazon recommends things. Because you bought that, you should buy this and this.
Yeah.
So that to me is smarter marketing, right? I checked out this book. Yeah. So, and I just bought this book. So don't keep showing me that book because I'm not going to buy another one.
Agreed. Yes.
Show me the other books that people buy when they buy that book.
Yeah, agreed. But the way the state of the technology currently, that they're deploying only is tracking what you're doing before the sale. It's utilizing only that data to display ads. Whereas
we need
the next
checkout
level,
data.
yes, it's customer data. It's the same.
Cookies are already there.
But it just needs to be programmed.
Like if you got to the thank you page, there are new cookies. You get cookied for new things.
Mm-hmm.
I really, at one point in time, thought I was Cookie Monster. All right, everybody, you are listening to program 112 on the Voice of Bold Business Radio. We are talking about the alignment of sales and marketing for the modern buyer. And you can see, as far as we have come, there are still things that can be improved and always will be able to be improved because technology will continue, our experiences will change, which means our expectations will change. And we have to remember to balance that both internally, hey, this is what we need to do to be making our money, and externally, hey, this is what we need to be doing for our customers to make that money. And I want to go back to this time piece. How much time and reflection do we need to spend and think about when we're talking about sales and marketing and trying to identify and prioritize what's important for us for these modern buyers that we're facing?
I think it's a good question, Jessica. Again, I'm a firm believer that one size doesn't fit all. What would be appropriate as far as time, resources, even people is very different from corporate level to the local mom and pop, very different scenarios. What I can say for us and the mid-market brands that we deal with, whether they're a one location, but they're a mid-market sized organization or a national one that's still in the mid-market realm, is part of our role is to always be doing that. So every step of what we're doing is looking at it from the consumer side. And we have to because, right, we're marketing, right? So we have to understand who are they, what drives them, and how do they react to X, Y, or Z, or all combined together. At the same time, we also have to take the feedback or the comments or the priorities coming from the actual client, and then we have to explain to them the impact that will have on the customer experience. It should be included in everything being done. There's my short answer. Go ahead, Brynne.
So thank you. That was great. The first thing I want to mention is the modern buyer requires a modern seller. One of the mistakes that we make is we're trying to traditionally sell the way we traditionally have sold to smarter buyers, to more self-sufficient buyers, to self-educators, right? So the question was time, and that's a really difficult thing to answer, and it's asked a lot, and it really depends on what you want to achieve and what you're willing to invest, because you can create a wonderful campaign on 3 hours a week, and you can create even a better one on 10, right? So it just depends on what you're looking to achieve. But if you are the salesperson looking to be a marketer or to do some of your own marketing because you need to speak with that modern buyer, and so a lot of that means you have to embrace some of the marketing, some of the thought leadership, proof that you're subject matter expert, because they're out searching. And it's really important as a salesperson that you're coming up in that search, that you're influencing their buyer decision, their buying decision, because if you're not, your competitor is. And that's where marketing has to really play closely with sales. But there are a lot of efforts that a salesperson can do that are not necessarily taking away from their prospecting time. So for example, maybe as a salesperson, I want to accomplish 3 things. 1, I want to be a thought leader in my industry. I want to engage the right buyers, and I want to have, having more conversations with the right buyers, and I want to come at them with credibility, right? Like I don't want to be a cold call. I want to start my relationship with them at a higher level. So how do we get all 3 of those things to happen at once? Well, consider interview blogs. Go out and start to interview your prospects and your clients and identify what matters to them. We start to learn kind of about them. We're coming in at a way different level than a sales level. We're really kind of promoting them and highlighting them and their ego makes them love you. You're now gaining insights about industry trends over time as you do a lot of these. So we can create not just blog posts, but really great reporting on what these top CEOs care about or whomever it is that you're selling to. You now build relationships, and you've got this reporting trend that all of their competitors want to see it. And by the way, they're promoting it because they're in it. You have more credibility with the next guy. I mean, that's just one idea. Now, does that take time? Absolutely. But to me, for a salesperson to say, I need to embrace marketing, there's not a better way. Gather all that information, team up with your marketing team to make it beautiful and grammatically correct, and get that out there. And now your salesperson has become a marketer that still follows and embraces the relationship. It's not just throw it on the wall and see how it sticks. So,
as little as a few years ago, it still took 2 years to develop a solid footprint digitally. Is that still the case for a brand? Is it longer?
I think it's shortened.
Okay.
But the caveat is how you do it 2 years ago is far different than the way you do it today. And It's constantly changing. And it's absolutely different from industry to industry and niche to market. So now if we're talking about an individual, okay, so a lot of questions in one big thing.
Right,
so
yeah.
The skills required in business today, no matter what career path you're in, now has a requirement of foundational understanding of technology, the ability to write, and the ability to use graphic tools and video tools. It's just how it is. I don't care what you do. If you're in any way customer facing, B2B or B2C, it's the difference between getting hired and not, and then also advancing or not, because it is all intertwined now. It just is. If you're a junior hire today and you're not learning to code, you're going to be in deep trouble.
I have 15-year-old twins that are now learning how to code. It's absolutely true.
It's just going to be normal. It's not even
Algebra 1 and coding.
It's a have to.
Yeah.
It's a have to. Right? And writing, communication skills, we're losing it based on how we're teaching our kids. Now I'm getting into the whole other thing. I'm an example of it. I didn't write anything after I left school until 15 years ago. And then I've been writing ever since. And I'm always writing and reading. And it's quintessential connection of internet, technology, sales, marketing. It is what it is. You're constantly creating content.
I hate to write.
A lot of salespeople can't write, but they speak wonderfully.
Yes.
We do that all the time. So
we do video.
That's true. Hello, here we are. Jessica's mode of medium to communicate and learn and get new ideas and then be able to share those ideas all at once is right here on video. And that's the part that I like. I like the connection and the interaction and the feedback right away. I don't mind talking to myself. I don't mind making individual shows. I don't mind getting up on a stage and talking to a room of people that don't know me very well, except for how I was introduced to them. Well, I don't mind any of that. And it's all okay. I love this. This is what is really good. And I would add to what was saying about the skills that we need that you guys have shared is knowing how you connect best and developing that skill also. So if you're a writer, write. If you're a talker, talk. If you're a networker, network. If you're I don't know what, anything that you want to be, pick that one thing in addition to these core hard skills that you need and make that the soft skill, the core competency that ties, that's the glue for all of them.
Jessica, that was good.
Thanks.
Good girl.
Yeah, we got to lighten that up. I got a little heavy. Whew.
No, that was good. That was
good. A lot of takeaways.
Yeah, it was said well.
So thank you. And you guys are amazing because this is what we need to think about. The fact that, okay, if we are one person, when we are thinking, or even if we're 10 people, or even if we're 50 people, at some point, we will outsource. We will create a strategic partnership. And the way we look at that strategic partnership is so important. And both of you guys are strategic partners for sales and marketing departments. And so I want to know now, what is like the question that you wish everybody asked you when you're having these conversations to find out of how you insert yourselves and connect and become a strategic partner for an organization?
We are a digital sales transformation company, and the emphasis is on sales. We work with the sales department. We work with sales teams. And I think the one question, which I get to anyway, because it's what is, how do we take our existing methodology and technology, whatever we have already, and instead of creating an entirely new LinkedIn program, how do we align what our folks are doing with LinkedIn or Twitter or video prospecting with digital sales technology? This isn't a new thing. Like, I'm older than you guys, and I've been in sales for a very, very long time. And when I started, we had no email. There was no email, right? Like, if someone called me on the phone and said, I want information.
That.
I know, right? I had to physically mail them information about Dun & Bradstreet collection and credit services. I could not send it via email. I know, right? It's bizarre. I think that digital, social is going to be that for this generation. They will not know how to function without it, the way we can't function without email now. That will be social. So how do we now, instead of siloing it here, how do we integrate it seamlessly into our daily routine so that it just becomes part of who we are and what we do? It's not another thing we have to do. So that's mine.
That's good. I
agree.
Yeah.
Brynn, I wish I knew you longer. I'm excited to know you now. This is going to be great as we get to know each other more.
Yeah, I love doing this stuff. This is way fun.
You know, there's no question I would say that I wish people asked us, because it always starts with a question, and that question is always based on their circumstances. And because we don't do any silo marketing, so even if they ask us, can you help us fix our social? Social's connected to content, content's connected to websites, right? So since we don't do silo, we always though go look, and guess what? A lot of times the problems or things that are enhancing the problems are not the actual thing that needs to be fixed, although it does need to be fixed. They're all connected, right? And so since we don't do any silo scenarios, it always starts with a question, but the question changes from brand to brand and client to client, and it depends on their circumstance. You know, do you handle SEO? Well, yes, but we do it in a context of this, that, or the other, right? We don't just do SEO. That never works out well. And
I know the question that you want them to ask you.
Okay, tell me.
We have a $720,000 marketing budget. What can you do for me?
We're probably not their agency, actually, if they have that big of a marketing budget.
That's the question I want.
Awesome. But the absolute crux of what we do is integrity and honesty. So my response would have to be that. We're probably not, because they need wine and dine and, you know, Wyden and Kennedy. That's what they need.
Okay, so $120,000.
Yeah, well then, yeah, we're right in the, yeah.
Whatever that dollar amount is, come to me with a budget, baby.
Yes, sure, absolutely. Yeah, our minimum $60,000 a year. So yeah, I mean, that kind of a question is always, it's usually.
I'm playing.
It's usually said a different way. What's the minimum you guys would the client? And then it's usually, oh yeah, we don't have that.
What can you do for $11?
Yeah, right. Which my reply would be, I already need to send you a bill for $150. Also,
okay, everybody, we are kidding here, yet it's really true. And so what I heard from both Robert and Brynn is that the clearer that you are on the problem you're trying to solve, the better that they will be able to understand how to work their work and bring their best and say, yes, I can help you, or no, I cannot help you. And yes, I can. Here's what that might look like. And then there's an alignment of, is what we want and what we can actually do fit within what needs to be done? So the more you can define the problem, the issue, the objective, the goal, the new thing you're trying to do, the better an organization like what Brynn and what Robert are running can help you. And that's what it comes down to. We got to know our problem. We got to know what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people don't know their problem. They know often what they'd like to achieve, but they don't know why they're not achieving
it. Oh, there's no doubt about it.
Well, shoot, guys, now we have a strategic partnership because that's what I do. I help people figure out what problems they need to solve and then help them prioritize it.
Perfect. I have 1,000,007 people to send your way.
Bring it. I am ready.
$720,000 budgets.
What's cool about that, though, Jessica, what we have found is when a client first comes to us, and we will schedule a formal phone call conversation. So my partner and I and them and their team, et cetera. So we always go look at their digital footprint, and oftentimes we can tell them what they're about ready to tell us about where they're having trouble, even though it's not stuff that we have data on, but we can usually tell from the marketing side of things how that's negatively being impacted internally. We can tell they're not getting much traffic and they're not getting inbound leads, and they're, you know what I mean?
Well, that's good. That means you have a good qualifying process because you're helping them figure out where their problems are when they don't know before they get to you. And how cool would it be if somebody came to you and knew their problem, and then you could actually be talking during that same period of time, they get more out of you guys and figure out how you work and get to pick your brain and see how honesty and integrity and the other values that you have that you haven't shared with us here still come into play that you live and work by. Which, by the way, I can tell you for both Brynn and for Robert, all you have to do is follow them on Twitter or Facebook or on LinkedIn, and you will see them living their personal values and showing up for their company and their company values every single day. This is one panel that I've been really looking forward to because I can see it from the outside in, and it's my other passions, values.
I love that. And I'll invite anyone to have a 15-minute call so that I can understand what they're looking to achieve and provide real insights. It's amazing what they can get in 15 minutes. That really makes a difference.
You guys, we're coming up on the end of our show. And I have a question for you. This will be the last question. And it is, what makes it bold to really consider being a modern seller for today's modern buyer?
Being a modern seller, you have to do what Robert just said. You have to be able to understand their needs before you even talk to them. That's what a modern seller can do. If you show up with your traditional sales, technique where you sit back on the chair with your big yellow pad and your pen and say, so what keeps you up at night? You're out the door, right? Like, that's not going to work anymore. In fact, that's scary. You have to walk in there and saying, here is what's happening in your industry. Here's how you benchmark to them. Here is, what we're seeing, where you look like you're strong, but here are the holes that we're seeing. And by the way, here are your top 3 competitors, and this is what they're doing better than you, right? You come in with that, and you're not like, I know what's keeping you up at night, and if you don't know this, it's going to keep you up at night very soon because it's going to start affecting your bottom line.
Yep.
So the modern buyer needs the modern seller. If they are researching us online, when we show up, they've got all of their points. We have to do that too. So what Robert is doing for his clients is modern selling, right? We've got to do that. The other piece is we have to make sure, and I'm going to go back to the line that I said earlier, at least I think I did, that we've got to lead them to our solution. We have to stop pitching. Often we're leading with our solution. Here's all the features, benefits, advantages. Here's all the things that we can do for you. And we've got to start leading to our solution with breadcrumbs, with insights, with thought leadership. get them curious and thinking differently about their current situation and giving them enough to want to have a conversation with you. One of my biggest closes came from someone who said, I learned so much from your profile that I had to talk to you, from your LinkedIn profile. Or your website, right? If you are educating and creating, you're being that thought leadership, you are creating credibility and subject matter expertise. And that's how business starts coming inbound.
Yep.
So I'm dropping the mic.
You go, girl. I'm going to pick it up and add two things to stack right on top of it. It needs to be done in today's modern environment. To be bold, you have to do it in two segments every time. One is professional and one is personal. You need to know what drives them professionally. What are the questions they're asking that you solve, right? And be able to do all these things we've been talking about in that realm. But you also need to understand the personal side. For example, when I had my tech company, I know my target audience was social media marketers. And I know from the professional side, it was about social media, duh, right? On the personal side, it was about coffee, right? Because I knew my audience. And as you recall, Jessica, I was the most influential person on the topic of coffee in the world.
I said I would send stuff that you said and shared to my husband, who is a fellow coffee snob, but not social.
Now I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. I still share coffee stuff because I do like coffee. But here's what nobody knew is I didn't love coffee. And I didn't drink half the amount of coffee everyone assumed. I didn't say, but everyone assumed I drank. Yep. But I knew my audience. And so I became an expert in coffee because if you do social media marketing, you drink a lot of coffee. It's just required, right? And funny things or informational things about coffee on the personal side was interesting to you. So again, to shorten it, to cap on top of what Brynn said, you have to do all those things and all the things we talked about today, but do it from a professional and a personal side. I love that. Know what drives them when they're on their way home, not just what drives them at the office. I'm done.
Drop the mic.
Boom.
Okay, if you are not smiling just a little bit at the end of this program, you didn't listen, and go back and listen again, because beyond the smiles are really concrete, useful action items. Everything from what we need to be thinking about to frame questions, to the skills that we need right now, to the 3 things we must know as a professional, period, and regardless of what area of business or activity we choose to do to make our money using the skills that we have. I'm telling you, this is a great episode. And all of those things are things that we can evaluate right now within ourselves. We can evaluate right now within our teams. And we can take a look as we are doing our own reflection, as we are thinking about the problems we are trying to solve and the priority of those problems. Take what Brynn and Robert have shared and work those into the next review you have and see how it can add some depth and perspective to knowing exactly where you are right now, so you know where you're going and working to get to. That's what it takes to be an effective leader today. Know where you are right now. And you already know where you're going. Keeping track of where we are right now, so we make sure we're on the path still, is really important. We are bold business leaders when we take time, when we stop, when we think, when we evaluate, when we consider both the professional and the personal for ourselves and for our customers. You're going to find all the program notes at voiceofboldbusiness.com/P112. That is voiceofboldbusiness.com/P112. You can also search for Modern Buyer. Don't forget, today's modern buyers require the alignment of sales and marketing.
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.